If the Pharisee does all of his Pharisee stuff, good morals, pays his tithes, doesn't cheat, doesn't rob anybody, doesn't extort anyone, walks in next week glad he's not that publican, what's God's response to him? Is it the exact same as it was last week? God is never changing. That's the key to this part of the quiz. God is unchangeable. God justified one the week before for the same reason that God justifies the man the next week. Now, I saw you like that, so I'm going to change the quiz. All right? Let's swap it up again. Let's go another week into the future. Except this time, the publican got stuck into a Sunday school class this week that taught him some morals. He tried to do a little bit better. So this week, I want you to take your character. Remember the guy or the girl that you had that's the walk in hell, everything in the world wrong with them? Cut it in half. Maybe if it was drugs or alcohol or sex, they did 50% this week, less. Are you with me? Cut it in half. They're getting better. In fact, one could say they're a lot better off this week than they were last week, right? Okay, 7 days in the future, and we come back to church, and here comes our 50% better publican. And he stands in front of God, and he beats his chest, and he hangs his head, and he says, "Have mercy on me, a sinner." And what does God do? Have mercy. Is it more mercy than he had last week when they were at 100% tilt? Is it the same mercy that it was last week? The same mercy as when they were hell, as when they were trying to be heaven. And here's the kicker, and I told you we would miss it because we always miss that in this story. We actually like to clean the publican up because we admire the Pharisee. We just don't admire his attitude. And we think the publican would be better off if he could live like the Pharisee and pray like the publican. That's the guy I want in church. Live like the Pharisee and pray like the publican. We got some grace. I'm here to tell you that the justification process of God ignored the Pharisee's good works and ignored the tax collector's bad works. Amen. That's the point of the story. Nothing you do matters for your righteousness. Only Jesus matters for your righteousness. Quiz number 3. If, when I told you that story, you thought, then the Pharisee would be better off to go out and live just like the publican if they're both going to be justified anyway, then I present to you that it's possible that you still don't understand what it means to be righteous. You're infatuated with what it would look like if you could get away with sin. Quiz number 3 is the one none of us want to take. The reality is I don't want to live like either the Pharisee or the publican. I don't want to live a life so in love with my moral code that I bring it before the Lord and list off the good that I do in the world. Amen. I also don't want to live like the publican where every day of my life is hell and chaos. Amen. Where I'm ruining everything I touch. The point of the story is that we don't want to live either the life of the Pharisee or the publican. We want to receive the justification of Jesus. Out of the justification of Jesus, the life that we live is the life of God on the earth. And you don't get to decide what that looks like in your neighbor. What you do get to do is love your neighbor and believe that God, ready to pull Paul back in? For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, being justified freely by Jesus Christ. I don't get to tell God what all covers. I just love all that are His. And I accept my justification in Jesus, not in me. Let's land here with Peter in 1 Peter 5. I know we could stop right there, but I want to stop with a text from deep into the New Testament canon. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5, likewise, young people, submit yourself to your elders. Yes, all of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. Isn't it interesting how we love the stuff like young people submit to the older people, but then we ignore all of you submit to each other? We fly right past that. The truth is that Peter's not trying to set up an age system of submission, but that we would submit to each other. Be clothed with humility because, look at this, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. How do you do that? Casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Cast your cares, not your performance. That's the beating of the breast to go, here I am, Lord. I can't do this. It's all you today. And he goes, justified. Not justified, go live like hell, but also not justified, go try to live like heaven. We need to say both. Because what we try to say to people is, you're justified now, don't go out there and live like hell and take advantage of grace. We ought to be saying the same thing to religious people. You're justified, now stop going out there trying to live like heaven and get God's approval. Because the reality is it ain't going to do you any good to go live like heaven any more than it would curse you to go live like hell in the eyes of God. And in fact, if you go out here and try to live like heaven, you'll probably end up despising all of the people that you don't think live like heaven. And if you go out here and live like hell, you're going to have enough hell to go around anyway. So in the end, wouldn't it be better to just be justified by believing on Jesus and let him do the rest? Out of that, then you go live the life that he has given you to live. I love this little parable. There's more there than meets the eye. I love that we get to come and stand before him and receive our justification not based on our good and not based on our bad. Because you're going to have both of them. None of them going to do you any good. God doesn't choose the publican because he's a bad guy. God doesn't reject the Pharisee because he's a good guy. Those are our terms. God's justification comes when we submit to who he is. Here's what the Pharisee and the publican both needed to know, something I've been telling you for months. At the end of the day, they both have to die. At the end of the day, they both have to die. I'm not just talking physically, I'm talking spiritually. It's just that the publican comes in closer to it from the word go. And when you come in closer to it from the word go, grace goes down sweet. It's when we seek to live on our own through our merit that we choke on grace, because we're so far from dying and we're pushing it away. And the reality is to accept that it is both the lot of the Pharisee and the publican, and that the justification comes through accepting his death as your death and entering into it and then letting him live his life through you.